Haste arrived on April Fool's Day 2025 to a games industry in shambles, afloat but at greatly reduced projections with an estimated 45,000 less employees than the preceding several years. Everywhere you looked, games were getting cancelled, people were losing jobs, studios were being shut down.
And this feeling that everything, absolutely everything, now exists on a knife's edge.
Landfall, the publisher behind Haste, had become empowered by feasting on the remains of the fallen, producing what turns out to be quite an interesting little $20 game. It's fast, surprisingly fun to play, and doesn't overburden you with non-essentials. It's not genre-defining, but it's better than I expected. Metacritic deems it passable, and Steam tends to agree that it's worth a look. You can feel the affection its makers had for it, especially in the moment-to-moment gameplay. The core loop is well tuned enough that almost certainly the programmers themselves are actual fun people in real life. I can almost guarantee you that if you asked any one of them to get an impromptu couple of lunch beers during the work week, they would say yes with minimal hesitation. Beyond the game itself, it's also worth bringing attention to Haste in the broader context of the shifting industry that it occupies. It's reflective of a changing approach some publishers are taking when it comes to offering new experiences for players, and I think that's a good thing. Because I'd wager that games like Repo, like Schedule 1, Content Warning, Mega Bonk, and yes, Haste 2 are the types of games that will continue bubbling up into this vast middle ground of video game cultural relevance. Small experiences built around strong, tightly established gameplay functions. It's a cheap exploration of ideas, developmental research in the public eye. You can put a lot of heart and soul into a piece like that, and you can do it cost effectively. There's more than value for money when it comes to the differences between good and great games, of course. I'm not exactly sure which of those Haste is, but in spite of some shortcomings, it's genuinely fun to play. It knows what it is, an unapologetic focus on speed that, at times, gets into this hazy 3D F-Zero wipeout territory. It even looks like F-Zero, X specifically, somewhat resembling the N64 era. Clean textures and bright colors allow a focus on the motion rather than the objects themselves. The world itself is rather bare, a vessel for the action more than anything else. Cutscenes don't overstay their welcome and are unexpectedly representative of how it actually feels to play the game. Movements are snappy, things accelerate instantly, and it cleverly uses motion cues to inform you about the characters in the plot, further deference to the theme of speed. Zoe, the captain, Niata, and the rest are depicted with strong definition and iridescent colors. I'm exceptionally fond of the captain's design. Very space dandy. The colors help it retain a bouncy atmosphere congruent with how it feels in the hand. Haste is function first. Everything else takes a backseat to the mechanics and how it feels to play. And oh boy, it feels pretty good. The speed in Haste has a purity to it. In this game, speed isn't something that you try to gain, more so something that you try to avoid losing. And in that way, you earn every bit you have. You'll be moving so fast across the Garo-shaded looking landscape that it will be difficult keeping Zoe on the ground at times. The wipeout feeling comes from a very trancy soundtrack with driving drum and bass pieces. The F-Zero-ness comes in how it actually feels to run. But Haste elevates the F-Zero style experience with its control loop. The reason this control loop is so good is that the success of retaining your oh-so-important speed is a function of two things, your inputs and the level topography. You'll be in the air quite a bit, which means you'll need to make soft landings, and this need of soft landing is key. The shallower the angle of that landing, the more speed you retain. Ideally, that angle is 0 degrees, a perfect meshing of planes. You've got basic pitch and roll controls, and the ability to shave a bunch of altitude with a trigger pull. And then there's the topography. The levels, called shards, are collections of trials spaced out among a handful of procedurally generated environments. Sometimes there'll be a theme, other times not. Their exact makeup will change depending on the shard and the phase of the game that you're in, but they'll usually be undulating, non-repetitive surfaces with a very normalized level of randomness. Almost any position you find yourself in, there's a good landing surface to target. Combine these controls and landscapes to get through a level as quickly as possible. Why quickly? We have roguelike elements in the form of a shotgun shell's worth of stat pellets to aid us on our runs. Clear successive pieces of the shards, pick up sparkly trinkets, spend said trinkets on buffs, continue blasting your way through the shard to the boss. Every given moment you're either going to be in the air or will be in the air very shortly, so you'll have a second to think, maybe less most likely. You look around, you ID which surfaces give you the best chance of landing at that near 0-degree angle while still keeping you on the right track. You pick the best you can in that flash of time, you stick the landing, and you repeat. Over and over, every moment. And some of these levels get fast. Fast. We don't have direct control over Zoe's location, of course, only her acceleration. We can kind of coax her in the right direction. It's somewhat like gliding from hilltop to hilltop. It feels really good. The inputs are well calibrated, even on Linux without Steam input. It feels like room temperature butter. Landfall is no stranger to riotously fun physics interactivity. Totally accurate battle simulator is fantastic if you've never played it. Even the recent Peak has some smart designs around your stability being a function of your foot placement. And certainly running at a high speed towards a goal is quite different. It still demands a mastery of gameplay physics in a 3D space. I guess I'm not surprised they nailed the movement, but man, it's hard to overstate. When you get moving, it's really good. But I don't know if I can say there's much else around that core. This game is kind of empty. There's a great incongruency between the fluidity and enjoyment of the action sections versus when the game is relaxed and breathing. Basically nothing is going on when you're not running. The fundamental sin of Haste is the same thing that makes it $20. The game just feels unfinished. It feels like an alpha build, not in the sense that it crashes or runs poorly, but that it presents as the beginning of what would otherwise be a long, exploratory design process. There's no story that hooks you, there's no compelling reason to read the dialogue between all these great action sequences, especially not when the dialogue is filled with variations of ellipses, 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 ellipses. Yeah, I'm not sticking around for that. I'm good, man. I'm good, thanks. There's not a lot going on at all external to your character. A consequence of designing a game around fast movement is that the environment ends up fairly static. Many of the story significant NPCs suffer from what I've grown to call from-itis. From-itis is a terrible disease. It's a crippling degenerative neuromuscular condition known only to affect important video game NPCs, rendering them unable to move. If we are told of things or about things by characters who are themselves unable to engage with those things, it may be that they are suffering from from-itis.
Soon must I begin my journey. Upon the dark path only I may tread.
If you could read that as, upon the dark path only I may tread, or upon the dark path only I may tread. It's like,
A decade ago, Preston Garvey would go with you to help secure the very settlements he continuously pesters you about. And today, we just drag downwards the opacity slider on the Ronnie layer. From-itis is not intrinsically bad, especially not at low costs of entry. Haste isn't built to be inspected at rest, it's built to go really, really fast. Zoe's scarf even flies up behind her at walking speeds, which is great. This game is not designed to be moving slowly. Walking almost feels like you're breaking something. The design concepts in use don't feel fully realized, but they struck a vein of gold, and I hope they keep digging. Credit where it's due, it has a multiplayer which I haven't tried. If you know someone else that has a copy that you want to run with, that might make all the difference in the world. It didn't look any more exciting to me than the single player, if I'm being honest. Many of the videos of multiplayer that I watched had two runners and they were both silent and focusing on the game rather than engaging with one another, which looks kind of, not fun. But that's also a taste thing, so eye of the beholder, something to keep in mind. Haste's vantage point within the broader industry gives it an interesting view, having debuted after most of the 22 to 25 games industry bloodbath. That huge blip on the chart you see here was Embracer's genius strategy of banking on one deal with the Saudis, but there's a clear malaise across the entire ecosystem. Looking over this, it's clear everyone is shaving roles. Publicly traded companies, small privately owned studios, large conglomerates. The studios who took the biggest hits, though, were the ones who took the biggest swings. Landfall, the publisher behind Haste, is not on this list. Peak has been raging popular. Totally accurate battle simulator by any metric I imagine was a success. Due to regional pricing variations and the intrinsically fuzzy nature of markets, whatever price they want to charge is up to them and up to you to decide if it's worth it or not. However, Haste currently is $20 on Steam, and $20 is not a terrible price. The only problem is that that same company, Landfall, will also sell you the amazing, unbelievably fun Peak for $8. And if you have even a single person to play Peak with, I cannot, in good conscience, say that Haste is 2.5 times more fun than Peak. I just can't say it. Them's the numbers. Can't help it. I got it!
What are you doing?
It's not that Haste isn't worth $20, I think it is. More that I think Landfall's prices are kind of all over the place at the moment, at least from a consumer standpoint. But the thing is though, Landfall can afford to make mistakes. It's built into their business model. They can afford to over or underprice their products on occasion. The agility offered to them by rapid prototyping and implementation affords them a lot of breathing room. Because the games are already fun, at that point the challenge just becomes marketing and luck. How many times can they get out a pair of dice and how many times can they roll them? I think they got the right idea. Hulking monoliths like EA, Sony, Epic, Rockstar et al. Will continue to occupy top spots, but beneath them lies a fertile range of opportunities for smaller publishers and outfits. Games like Haste spring from that fertile space, where these publishers can identify and support teams working on less top-heavy projects and get those experiences in the hands of people who would love them. I really hope we see more single-shot projects like Haste, whether they be $20, $8, or somewhere in between. Quality experiences with a healthy dose of jank, that's all the consumer wants, that's all we want. And I think what we're seeing now from companies like Landfall, at least I believe, are the beginnings of growth from the industry's ashes. Rapidly scaffolded games built around very strong concepts without spending on unnecessary resources, that equips them with the agility to navigate what seem to be all but certain waters on the horizon. A deeply networked consumer base with very diverse tastes. I finished up Hades 2 before playing some Haste, by the way, and everything I said about a changing industry applies to Supergiant's work as well. A nimble team with an eye for quality, they, like their brethren, will come to own this space. Thanks for Haste, it's an interesting piece of work, and I checked that layoff spreadsheet for Supergiant too, by the way. They're not on there.